Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Integrated Self Podcast. I'm Ariana, your host, holistic health practitioner, future PhD and doctor of natural medicine, and spiritual guide. So today, I really want to kind of have a little discussion and open up our perspectives a little bit, because once I started to grasp this concept, it kind of made life a lot of fun, and it made me feel like no matter what I was doing, whether it was something like a spiritual practice or it was just spending time with friends and family, it helps kind of open your perspective to what is available to you in every single present moment, and also kind of opens our eyes to not taking this life so seriously. I feel like there is a serious side to evolution and spiritual work, but then there's also like a side to us, and there's also a side to this work that's like, it doesn't have to be so serious all the time. And no matter what age you are, or where you are in life or your life specifically, there's always something to be learned. And there's always something to be embodied or taught. The whole premise of this episode by the title is that we are all students and teachers, right? So I think that there's a balance that we can create in this life, and with our spiritual development, with our personal development, right? Like doing the mindset work, doing the spiritual work, doing the regulation, learning about ourselves, right? Like obviously the work that we do, or if you follow my podcast or follow me at all, it's because you're interested in improving yourself, healing yourself, experiencing, being able to experience a life that you want to experience, whether it be the health, the relationships, the relationship with yourself to be healthy and better and more empowering, or improving your relationships with others, right? And challenging ourselves to grow in that way. We are all students and we are all teachers, right? So there's this balance that we have in life of learning something, right? Like admitting that we don't know everything, right? Like I don't care if you're talking to the most evolved person on this planet, when you're talking spiritually, they don't know everything, right? So that's another thing that I always try to keep in check. And that's another reason why it's taken me a long time to kind of have this level of conviction and have this level of, I want to be a leader in this space, whether it's just for my community or whatever. But something that I always struggled with is like admitting, like I've always admitted I don't know everything, right? So like I kind of got in, for a while I was in the perspective of like, I don't know everything, so why would anyone want to listen to me? But then I realized that nobody knows everything, right? So I'm no different than you or anybody else, whether they're teaching in the space or not. So I think no matter what, we are all students, meaning that we all learn in this life and we all teach in this life. And so what I truly believe is that once you learn something, you then embody it or you teach it, right? So maybe you're not teaching it as in like sitting people down in your life and teaching them, like giving unsolicited advice, but you're more so taking the knowledge or the learning something and then applying it to your life. You're still teaching that, because although you're not like saying, hey, I want to teach you this, or maybe people aren't asking to be taught certain things, you naturally teach that based off the fact that you embody that, right? So when it comes to boundary setting, once you learn how to set boundaries in your life, you then, as you set boundaries, teach everybody else around you about boundaries, because you now hold them and you now set them and you now communicate them. And then the highest form of boundary setting, in my opinion, is embodiment, where you don't have to actually verbally communicate, hey, don't talk to me that way. You're just that energy. You just embody that expectation and that self-respect that people, like, you don't even have to tell people. It's almost just like they know based off of your aura, based off of the way that you show up and how you treat others, or how you talk about yourself or how you talk about others. People then start to understand where your boundary lies based off of what you're showing them you tolerate, or what you're showing them you let slide, right? So in my opinion, you don't have to be an actual teacher like me, or like a school teacher to be, call yourself a teacher, because in my opinion, you teach people just by being yourself, by embodying the wisdom that you learn, right? So I truly believe there are times along our journeys where we're being guided to learn, whether it be a small moment in a conversation or it be a period of a month or a couple weeks or whatever, where we're actually sitting and learning about ourselves or identifying and working with a certain limiting belief, or we're learning, maybe in meditation, we're being guided to learn a new skill, whether that be tarot, whether that be meditation, right? Meditation is something to learn as well. So it's like along our journeys, we're being guided to learn new things, right? Obviously, the whole time we're learning about ourselves, but we're also learning about the world, right? So along my journey, for example, I've been guided to learn a lot about, what's the wording I want to use? I don't really want to use the wording like conspiracy, because I don't even like any of that terminology. But more so, like, I've been guided to learn deeper about societies and life and systems and propaganda and Hollywood, and like even just like going down the rabbit hole of certain things, because to me, everything is spiritual. And by learning about the darkness and by learning about the world in those ways, it actually helps me spiritually, because it helps me grow my strength, grow my passion about what I truly care about. Like, I truly believe that, when I learn or research these things, a lot of times anger comes up because, you're learning things about like human trafficking, you're learning things about, and this is just an example. But for me, like, I've just been guided to really learn about the injustices of the world. And I have like that worldly perspective when it comes to spiritually looking at things. And so I see things very deeply. I see things very spiritually, and it helps me grow my respect for the divine, grow my respect for people living their lives in love, in alignment to source consciousness, or our creator, God, whatever your words are, but also makes me feel more empowered to create change on this planet. As you learn about the injustices of the planet, it makes you want to help, it makes you want to be of service, and actually put your own ego and your fear aside, because you recognize that there are bigger issues at play. And I just really believe that we're all guided to learn at certain points along our journey, no matter if it's like learn a skill, learn a spiritual practice, learn about ourselves, learn about our triggers, in conversation with other people, right? So we're all always learning. I truly believe that you stop evolving when you choose to stop learning. You choose to stop learning about yourself. You choose to stop learning about the divine. You choose to, or, whatever your perspective is of a belief system, of a higher power, of source, of God, whatever your words are. You choose to stop learning anything new in your life, right? Like, I have not a lot of people. I have some people that are kind of in my circle of friends and family, and there are some people I've come across that are so depressed and so miserable in their lives, and it's because they don't do anything new. They don't learn anything. They've accepted that this is how life is, this is how my life is, this is how I am, and that's just me. That, like, like a lot of people that aren't doing this work, like, you kind of can tell, because they're just like, well, that's just who I am. And it's like, well, clearly it's making you miserable, and it doesn't have to be, but that person, in order to change that, has to be willing to and wanting to. And so a lot of people are honestly comfortable in misery and comfortable in being unfulfilled. And so I just see a lot of people in my life that, like, even when it comes to what they do day to day, it's just like watching TV, it's just sitting around and, stressing over things, but they don't change anything about it. Like, these people stress and probably have a lot of anxiety about their health, but they're not doing anything to change that anxiety by addressing their health, right? So I truly believe that you stop evolving when you stop learning, you stop being curious, you stop chasing those thoughts and those curiosities that you have on your mind. Like, I truly believe that if you're having like some sort of like insight or curiosity about something, go follow it. It doesn't mean that you have to make that your whole personality. It doesn't mean that you have to learn everything there is to know about that thing. It doesn't mean that you have to make that an income stream. But if you learn it, right? Like I started working with tarot, not because I ever thought I'd make money from doing it, but because I knew that it would help me grow so much spiritually. Because when you learn tarot, you learn a lot about the subconscious. You learn a lot about different energies. And then I always knew, like, by using cards, whether they be tarot or oracle, that eventually what I'm doing is I'm using the cards as a tool, as an external thing to help me work on my psychic abilities. And I've seen that grow. I've seen that happen. And so I know that I was always meant to pick up cards because I knew that it would serve me so much in so many areas of my own growth and healing and my spiritual knowledge, but also be able to give back and help when I can, and to connect to my own psychic abilities and to grow that. Whatever it may be, if you're being inclined, if you keep having the same idea, like I'll give another example because I love examples. I think that when people give examples and real life personal experience and people to kind of like, I don't know if you guys continue to listen to my podcast episodes and even like past ones, I always like have a topic I'm talking about, but I either sprinkle in like my own personal experiences or my life or my trauma or whatever it may be to like kind of help everybody understand and to also like kind of break down that barrier between myself and my audience. And so when it comes to this topic, like another example is that for the past, like, it's so interesting too how these ideas and curiosities come about, because I've been reading this like romantic book series. It's like fictional, it's romance, drama, thriller, like trauma kind of book. I have so many like nonfiction books. Like I read a lot for school. Like I have herbalism books that I'm reading right now because I'm in my herbalism class for my PhD. But I have a lot of like nonfiction books. I have like another book that I have been meaning to read. It's like all about like earthing and grounding. I also know that my brain needs a break from all of this stuff, from learning in my school and my studies, from teaching my clients, and also my own spending time on myself, my own healing, my own spiritual practices. I think that like even my boyfriend made a comment to me because I was like obsessively reading this series. There's like 5 books in the series and I read them all within like 2 weeks because I was just, they were that good. And my boyfriend's like so used to me working like later at night and like, you know, just always like, he's always like, what are you doing? And I'm like, working. What are you going to do this weekend? Work, you know? And when I say work, it means like actually build, like, you know, make podcast episodes or create content or whatever that means. I just say work because it's easier. But when I was reading those books, my boyfriend was kind of just like, I'm really glad that he said something like, I'm really glad you're reading. Like it's nice to see like this, that you're doing something for no reason. You're doing something because you just enjoy it. You just enjoy these books. It's not for your business. It's not for your spiritual knowledge. It's not for your studies and your degrees. It's just for you. And I really loved when he said that. And I'm a words of affirmation girly. So any words of affirmation that man gives me, I soak up like a freaking straw, like a sponge, whatever the saying is. But anyway, my point is when I was reading those books, the girl, the main character in those books, did like Krav Maga. I hope I'm saying that right. Krav Maga. I don't know how to say it. I really hope I'm not like offending anybody, but the more that I was reading her and like, you know, in the book, the character kept going to these classes and doing self-defense work and all that. And it kind of like sparked this idea within me because I was like, I want to do that. I want to learn self-defense. I want to be in a community. I want to learn some new, like, cause it's like fitness, but it's also self-defense and, you know, it's a cultural thing. Like I want to learn like that. It keeps calling me. Cause at first I'm like, it was kind of just like me picturing myself doing that. I'm like, yeah, I'd enjoy that. And then as I kept reading and as the thoughts kept coming, like the curiosity kept coming to the surface of my mind, and I was like, I'm meant to do this. I'm meant to try it. Does it mean that I'm going to do like jujitsu or Krav Maga like for the next 30 years? Like, do I have to make a certain commitment to it now? No, but I'm going to honor the curiosity that I have. I'm going to learn something new. And I know that when I do that, I'm going to learn so much about myself. I'm going to learn and put myself in a new environment. You know, I'm going to be in a new environment that I can admit I know absolutely nothing, and I'm surrounded by all these people that know more than me. And I love that. I love feeling like a small fish in a big pond. And so I just like, that's just another way where you could be doing something else, or you could be having conversation with your parents or your siblings or whoever, your friend, and then they say something and it kind of sparks a curiosity within you. Or you're like, oh, my best friend goes for walks every morning from 6 to 7 a.m. And she's talking about how much she loves it. And she's talking about how it's really nice to move her body before work, and how she gets up and like it's really helped her become a morning person. And I know that I kind of want to do that too. Try it. Like, that's your natural intuition saying like, come on, like come this way, right? So follow your curiosities. And I think the reason why a lot of people don't do this is because they attach all these meanings to it. Like, oh, if I try jujitsu, then that means that I have to like, that has to become my thing. And then I have to like, tell everybody about it, or I have to stick with it for X amount of time, or like, what does this mean about me? Like, you don't have to place, like, when we can drop all of those questions and just stick to the fact that, hey, I'm feeling guided to try this. I don't know why, right? Maybe the reason why source and your intuition, your higher self is guiding you towards that thing is because you're going to meet somebody while you do it, or you're going to learn something. And then you don't have to keep doing it, right? Like, it's almost like you never know what could happen down the road. But since you haven't even tried that new thing yet or learned it, but you're already like limiting yourself by saying all these things. Like, what does this mean about me? And like, what are people going to think? And like, just try it. You don't have to tell anybody anything. And that's another thing that I have learned along my journey is like, when I was the most insecure and I was like such a people pleaser, it was really like, I felt like I had to tell everybody all the amazing things about my life or my accomplishments, because that's like, I needed validation. And so I'm like, oh, like if I try this thing, I have to tell everybody because I need validation and approval. But in reality, it's like when you start healing and you start honoring yourself in these ways, you realize that you don't need to tell anybody anything. Like, I wrote a book for 2 years and like didn't really tell anybody. If you want to do something and you have a curiosity and you wonder, or like you're fearful about what people are going to think about you trying that or learning that thing, that's something to heal within yourself and take like a really closer look at. But moreover, it's like, no one has to know. No one has to know that you're meditating. No one has to know that you set up an altar and you've been guided to do an altar, right? Like, I don't have an altar, but like you could, if that's something that you've been guided to do, then do it. Like, this is your life, and your direction, your guidance comes through a lot of it comes through curiosities that you have, right? Or if you're someone like me that's like always daydreaming about yourself, or like seeing yourself in different environments and visualizing like, okay, what would it look like or be like if I did X, Y, or Z? If you're in those daydreams a lot, doing those things, and a lot of those daydreams are the same, and a lot of the things you're doing in those daydreams are the same, that's literally your divine guidance coming through to be like, go, try it, learn it, do it. We're always learning, right? And I'm so glad I learned this now, because especially when we talk about like the brain, if you don't use certain pathways in your brain by continuously practicing them, they will kind of, your brain actually realizes, hey, we don't think this anymore, so we're going to crumble down this pathway to save energy. So what happens is like, if you like, for example, if you know a skill or you know how to do something and then you don't do it for 2 decades and then you pick it up again, you probably are like rusty because your brain hasn't done that in a while. It hasn't kept solidifying those pathways by you doing it. So what happens is like, if we aren't choosing to continue learning in our lives, even if you're 70 or 50 years old, you're like in the middle of your life, it's still so important to learn. It's still so important to use your brain. So that's why a lot of people that are, in assisted living homes or like, nursing homes or whatever, they encourage people like that to do a lot of like Sudokus and like crossword puzzles and questions and reading, because that will keep your brain learning. It'll keep you learning and absorbing new information. Because again, going back to the fact that I truly believe we stop evolving when we stop choosing to learn, when we stop choosing to grow. Again, like one of the first things that I learned in my spiritual journey is like, if you're so sick of the same routine, if you're bored in your routine and your reality, change up the routine. right? The energy, if you keep seeing the same people, you keep going to the same places, you keep doing the same things at the same times, eating the same foods, that's just, you're going to repeat the same things. You're going to experience the same tastes, the same feelings, the same digestion, the same whatever it may be, seeing the same people because you're at the same places at the same times every day, so the easiest way to change up and create new energy to come into your life is by you switching up things, right? So if you always work out at night, start working out in the morning, take a different way to work, go out for lunch at work. Even if you bring your lunch, take it out somewhere, sit outside instead of sitting inside at your desk and eating lunch the same, like every day. You know what I mean? So if you don't have that much, if you don't have the ability to be flexible with your routine and create your day out of scratch, and you have a 9 to 5 or you have obligations, how can you create change in those tiny little details, right? Like, what if you woke up and worked out from 6 to 7 a.m. so that at night, instead of being at the gym late, you're actually home with your family, or you're actually able to clean up your house so when you go to bed it's clean, and like you're able to do your nighttime routine and unwind, or actually watch a podcast before you go to bed, or read a book. Like, it doesn't matter, right? So by making different choices, you're opening the energy up. You're able to experience different things at different times, going different places, seeing new people, right? Like switching things up. And that kind of brings me back to where I started this episode, where I was saying that I know some people in my life that they don't do anything. They don't learn anything. They don't read. They watch TV and they're on their phones. Like, they're not even in their own reality because they're on their digital reality so much that they're not learning anything. They have no fulfillment. Their soul isn't fulfilled. Their mind is like bored. And it's because you're not giving it any sustenance, whatever the word is. You're not, like, you are in control of what change you create in your life, right? And if you're miserable, you have the ability to change that, right? If you're bored, you have the ability to create change. But instead of sitting there complaining you're miserable and bored, you are the only one that has to cross that threshold and say, I'm miserable and bored, and I know that if I create change, I can be less miserable and bored, right? Or I'm unhealthy, but the more that I just say, oh, I'm unhealthy and that's the way it is, you're only going to experience change if you admit you're unhealthy and then choose to make different choices, right? Call in different energy. You'll experience different feelings, different foods, different workout routines, like whatever it may be. So I don't care who you are and what stage of your life you're at. We are always learning and we are always teaching. So I truly believe that once you master something, you are just a qualified teacher of that thing, right? Once you master patience, you now are a living embodiment, a walking example of what patience looks like. So when we become the teacher, a lot of times we don't even recognize the impact that we have, right? Like, I could post a reading and I can see the number of likes and the number of comments, and I can read the comments, but we all know that most people like and not everyone comments. So I could leave an impact or teach on something that has an impact that I'm not even aware of, right? Like, I only see the number on the screen. I don't know who you are and how that helped you and how that's going to create change in your life, which then creates change in your children's lives because now you have patience, right? Like, as the example, when it comes to being a teacher, you might not realize the impact that you have, right? When it comes to being kind and being, like, maybe you've mastered the fear of walking up to a stranger, and you used to live a life where you would never say anything to a stranger because you were just scared and you were insecure and you didn't feel confident or comfortable enough with yourself to just walk up to somebody. And now you do, and you've mastered that. And now you feel comfortable in your skin, you feel comfortable out in the world, and you know that you have a bright light to spread and to share, and you feel divinely guided to walk up to somebody and give them a gift card, or to say something to them, or compliment them on their hair, or open the door for them, whatever. Give an old lady some flowers. I saw someone on TikTok do that this morning. Now, when you say that thing, of course, the person's like, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, like, that was so sweet of you to say, blah, 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 whatever. Have a nice day. Bye. But you don't know how and when that stops and ends. Maybe now that, like, that could have been something so influential to that person. Maybe you don't know what they're going through. Maybe they really needed to hear that today. And now maybe they leave that store or whatever, that gas station, in a completely different energy than they did when they arrived. You never know the impact that you have. And so it's not about knowing the impact we have. It's more so following the guidance we receive to make the impact, and then trusting that we were guided to that person, to say that thing, to that event, to that vacation for a reason. And whether or not we see that directly in our face or not, it's none of our business, right? So when you become the teacher, a lot of times your teachings you don't really see the full effect of the impact that you have, but you also wouldn't be able to have such an impact like that if you chose not to embody what you've learned. You are a qualified teacher of something. You are now qualified. I will qualify you. Qualified by Ariana. You are now qualified to be that, to teach that, to embody that, whatever it is, right? And now people learn from you just by you being that, just by you emulating that message, by you emulating that energy, by you walking away. Especially with kids, if kids are around and you set a boundary, or if kids are around and you, like, let's say you have a child, like I have a personal life experience with this. I don't have kids, but there's someone in my life that has a child. And the grandparents of that child have been verbally abusing him a lot when that child is at their grandparents' house. And so it got to a point where the mother of the child had to turn to the grandparents and be like, how dare you treat my child that way? You don't get access to my child when you treat him that way. And this is your grandson. And popped off, but also said it in a way where it was like, this is to the point. This is what you now lose access to because of the way that you choose to behave, right? But the whole time that was going on, the child was aware of what was going on, how they were being treated, and was aware of how the mom handled that. So now in that situation, the mom is a teacher for the child, because while the child may not be able to, doesn't have a fully developed brain and a frontal lobe, the child, no matter how old, will still look at their mother that way and think, she stood up for me. She doesn't tolerate that. I'm not supposed to be treated that way. Right? So you're teaching your child that way just by the way you handle the situation. We're not putting up with this. You never put up with this behavior. This isn't how we treat people, and this isn't how people treat us. That's a huge learning lesson, right? That child learned by watching his mother stand up for him in that way and say those things. So I think it's really important to realize this, whether we just apply this concept to spirituality or just about living your life. Follow your unique desires and your curiosities. We're always meant to be learning, right? So I had to learn a lot about business. I had to learn, obviously, I'm studying this stuff, so that's learning, but I also wanted to learn my own things. Tarot was not a school requirement, obviously, so I learned that on my own. I learned so much on my own. I learned how to edit podcasts and videos, and I learned how to edit TikToks, even, not that that's a huge crazy skill, but there is a lot of things that along your journey, especially when it comes to manifestation, a lot of us have these big dreams, but it's almost like we feel like, oh, well, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to be an entrepreneur. Then learn it. You can learn it, right? So a lot of our manifestations come with having to learn something. And I think that when we start limiting ourselves and saying, well, I don't know how to do that, so it's not for me. No, honey, you can just learn how to do it. Teach yourself, right? There's so much available to us at all times now, especially with the internet, that I truly believe that nothing's off the table. And I truly believe that as long as you continue learning and following your divine guidance, you will experience what you want to experience. And the more that you trust the guidance you receive and not judge it, right, the more it makes it easier to follow the guidance. Instead of saying, oh, I really want to learn tarot, but this, but that, but you're blocking your own guidance. You're blocking your own ability to follow the guidance. Sometimes we're not meant to be learning, we're meant to be teaching, right? So maybe it's not your learning season. You're meant to be out there teaching what you just learned. So to me, this is like a cycle. It's a cyclical thing where we kind of like, it's like this beautiful balance. Like I'm kind of visually seeing right now in my third eye, like an infinity sign, and on one end you have learning and on the other you have teaching, and it's kind of like this beautiful wave and this flow back and forth between the two. Learn something, teach it, right? Learn something, teach it, learn something, teach it. And I think also teaching it helps you really solidify in what you've learned, because now you're turning around and teaching it to others. So sometimes we're not meant to be learning, and sometimes we're not to be in that like planning, introspective, learning phase of our lives, and we're meant to be out there doing the work and creating the impact with the knowledge that we've gained from learning, right? And then sometimes we're like, you know what, I've kind of reached this part of my journey where I've taken everything to the heights I can take it, and now I need to learn a new skill to kind of add another block onto what I've built so far. So maybe you've built a huge empire, but that person still admits, oh, I can still learn more about investing. I can still learn more about delegating. I can still learn more about being a good boss to my employees, right? So at every level, there's going to be new challenges, new lessons, and new things to learn outside yourself, right? Like skills, whatever. But there's also going to be new things to learn about yourself, right? Because if you think about it, if you change your environment or you change your reality, you're now experiencing yourself in a different reality. So you're going to learn about yourself. Again, you're going to learn about yourself in what does it feel like if I do jujitsu? What does it feel like? Oh, now I know what it feels like for me to be a master of tarot, right? Like whatever it may be for you. I just think it's really important, and it's freeing to think of your life this way, as we're all students and teachers. And this also, if you guys struggle with imposter syndrome, this kind of helps you detach from that a little bit, because you're recognizing that you're not perfect and you don't know everything, but no one else does either. So you actually have become the teacher of something that you are now qualified to teach others on. I think a lot of questions might come across your mind as you listen to this episode today, where it's like, what are the curiosities that I've been having, like, and they keep replaying in my mind? What are the things I want to learn? Hope that I really get this across to you guys, that you as an individual do not conform to what other people around you are learning and doing, because you as an individual are being guided to do specific things because of your specific life path and what you're meant to be doing and what you have the ability to do here. So instead of like saying, like, I've had moments with myself where I'm like, oh, I really want to learn about that or teach on that, but people are going to think I'm weird. No, I'm being guided to learn these things because I'm meant to be the one to talk about them, because nobody else is. You know what I mean? So I really hope that this makes sense. Maybe ask yourself what kind of things that have been coming up to your mind to learn. What have you been wanting to learn? What do you think you need to learn in order to step into that new identity of yourself that you want to become, right? Like, ask yourself, okay, I always picture myself as a certain version of me, maybe more outgoing, maybe more patient, maybe more loving to yourself, takes care of yourself more, whatever it may be. What's the difference between you now and the version of you that you want to become? And what are the things that version of you has learned that you now hasn't learned yet? And how can you start learning them, right? Because once you learn it, you can then be it. Know thyself, learn thyself, be thyself, embody thyself, embody that energy, embody that knowledge. As far as the topic of us being students and teachers, we are all both, right? Someone might be really good at certain things, but that means that they're not good at others, right? You can't be good at everything. You can't know everything. So all of us are here to learn and then teach. So ask yourself, am I in the season of my life where I'm learning or I'm teaching? Or is there something that I know very well that I could teach others, or I could embody more of, or I could show others around me or teach others around me, right? And even like this concept could be applied to career and business wise. Like if you guys are entrepreneurs or you guys are somebody that wants to, be on social media and kind of help people in some way and you don't know where to start with this. Ask yourself, what is one thing I know very well, or know how to do very well, or know how to, I know this very well. Like I could talk about this all day long. I could give you all the information you need to know on this topic or this transformation or this skill or this DIY project. I don't care what it is. How can I, what is the skill that I know? And is there a demand for it? Do people want to know how to do that? Start there. At the beginning of my journey, I didn't know that much about wealth and money and the frequency of wealth and how to attract money specifically. I was more so focused on patience and insecurity and shame and being embarrassed of myself and doing the deep inner work regarding myself. It wasn't until maybe a year or two later that I really started reading and focusing more on money itself and the energy of money, and kind of brushing up in that area as far as energetics and mindset and all the things, right? So I truly believe once you've mastered something, you are now qualified to teach it. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this episode. I hope that this made you excited and made you feel more expansive as far as what's possible, the directions you could take from wherever you are right now. Maybe you had epiphanies if you came into this episode with needing clarity or confusion about your life. Or if you're someone in your life right now that feels miserable or feels like everything is just going through the motions and you need more some more, what's the word? I keep wanting to say sustenance. Nothing's really stimulating your mind. Nothing's making you excited to wake up in the morning. Try learning something new, right? Try asking yourself, what's another way that I could mix things up, right? Because obviously the way you're doing things or the way that you're setting your routine up or the people you're around or the foods you're eating, whatever it may be for you specifically, it's not working. It's not providing to you what you desire. So how can you now, as the creator of your reality, create change through you by choosing to change things up, by choosing to learn something, by choosing to stop doing certain habits that you know are wasting your time, are preventing you from learning something, are making you feel certain emotions that you stay stuck in, right? Eating certain foods that make you gain more weight and feel more anxiety and feel less energized. I think a lot of there's so much in our control that a lot of us sometimes don't want to admit, but that's the freeing part, is once you admit that you are in more control than you think, it's that much easier to create change because you realize that you are the source of power in your reality. So if you want any kind of transformation, it comes through you, but you have to be able to get yourself there in that mindset of, I want this change, I desire this, not this, and I'm the one that's going to get myself there. No one's going to come save me. No one's going to come yell at me and make me do certain things. No one's going to come meal prep for me. No one's going to come put this book in my face. No one's going to turn the TV off for me, right? So how am I living my life? Is there something I need to learn? Is there something I want to learn? And then once you've learned something, ask yourself how you can teach it, how you can embody it, how can you be that more in your life or be of service more to the people in your life by being an active, walking, breathing example of what you now know. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this episode. Put your comments below, subscribe to my YouTube channel, or rate this podcast on Spotify. And I'm so excited for my masterclass coming out in a couple weeks. It's called Reclaim Your Power. And it's all for people that are feeling powerless in their lives and want to step into that power and heal and release the old identity, release the people-pleasing tendencies, the insecurities, the trust issues with themselves and with the universe, and learn how to heal so that you actually permanently leave survival mode and are able to now step into your power and remain that way and get familiar and comfortable in that version of you and learn how to activate that freaking throat chakra to say what you want to say. Because this collective I'm talking to and the group of people that this masterclass is made for are people that you've made everyone comfortable your whole life. Meanwhile, you're uncomfortable because you're not happy with the way you're living your life. And now it's time to reverse that. Now it's time to get comfortable in who you are, get comfortable in your choices and in the reality that you want to live. And that might make other people uncomfortable, but that's okay because your whole life you we're uncomfortable for the sake of others. And it's time to rewire that in our brains. And it's time to learn how to step into our power, to be able to be confident, to be assertive, to communicate ourselves, and to actually be in that attractive energy to receive in return. Because a lot of my people pleasers, a lot of my overgivers have trouble receiving because they're constantly leaking energy everywhere. They're constantly overgiving. So a lot of these people have trouble receiving, and that's a huge topic of conversation we're going to be having. I'm going to be talking about 3 things that you need to actually step into your power and to heal and to permanently leave survival mode so that you can actually experience life the way that you've always wanted to, but feel like your programming, your childhood trauma, your belief system, your self-concept is preventing you from actually feeling that way. Or you feel like you've been healing and making some progress on your own, and it's been years or months, and you're ready to collapse time and know exactly what it is you're missing so that you can actually start feeling that way about yourself. So I'm super excited for that masterclass, and I can't wait to see you guys again next week. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great week, and I will see you very shortly.